And our speakers for this panel are Rachel McGovern, VP of Sales for Vibe, and Ben Bolanini, VP for E-Commerce, OluKai. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you everyone for joining today. Very excited to be talking with Ben from OluKai today. Really quick, as Todd mentioned, I am the head of sales at Vibe, and just a few quick notes about us because I have to, right? For most e-commerce brands in the audience, you've probably nailed Meta and Google, and you've done creative testing, you know your attribution stacks, you know what you want your return on ad spend to be, and then you come to a conference, you walk by a booth and somebody says, well, what about TV? And that's what we're doing out there. Essentially, you start to think about broad audiences, you worry about what incrementality looks like, how is that trackable? And that's really the problem that we've solved at Vibe with TV, is we're a streaming TV platform that allows you to target very hyper-targeted audiences on TV, very similar to how you would with Meta. We often joke and say we're the Facebook ads of TV. And with that, we have a own proprietary device graph with 120 million households that allows you to target based on your first-party data, CRM, lookalike audiences, prospective dynamic purchasers of your product, and then also run those ads on very premium channels, such as like Hulu, Peacock, Disney, HBO Max, Paramount, you name it. So it's very hyper-targeted premium channels, targeted like Meta with an attribution channel as well. So we're very integrated within all of your marketing stacks. So if you needed to track incrementality, we have in-house media mix modeling. We have even partnerships with Northbeam and Triple Whale that will allow you to even see the multi-touch attribution, the halo effect. So with that, we have met at Grow last year, fun fact.
Yeah.
It was the first time you met our team.
Yeah, look at that.
And have been running with us for a long time, and appreciate that. Another fun fact is I am wearing my OluKai shoes, which I did not have. I had these before we met at the first conference. Little like shameless plug that they are great conference shoes. All right, so let's get into like kind of talking. I feel like Andy Cohen with my like signs here for.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I hope I'm as funny as he is too. Let's get into kind of what brought you to Vibe and testing CTV. So you had been running TV before. Kind of talk to us like what made you kind of look at the media mix of CTV and where it kind of stands today.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Ben, VP Ecom at Trade-In Services, a portfolio company that supports premium direct-to-consumer lifestyle apparel brands, OluKai most notably in the footwear space. So yeah, I mean, OluKai's been, it's important to know OluKai's been around for over 20 years. It's significant presence in the wholesale distribution market, owned to retail, and e-com and Amazon are fairly nascent additions to the business units. So as a result, we introduced direct response channels, Meta, Google, these kind of things that were increasingly becoming criticized as like a considerable variable spend against an otherwise wholesale type modeled business. So when we entered TV, it became all the more important to really validate this and ensure that it's measured with a level of scrutiny in a similar way. So our mix was like very much direct response, focused on immediate conversion. And we found that there's a halo impact, a significant benefit to introduce that to support the other business units further. So TV became an increasingly interesting portion of our mix. It had been present as a linear channel prior. And my challenge with it was some of the attribution. We can get into it, but yeah, it's a little bit about the mix that we had at the time.
Okay, love that. So walk us through how you thought about the audience strategy when you added on streaming television and CTV. Was it more of like wanting to re-engage previous buyers, find new buyers, high lifetime value? What was like kind of the targeting?
Yeah, so for us, it was very much, I'm always a proponent of growth and new acquisition and new reach. And I hope that a lot of my other efforts and the strong brand presence can support the retention cohort and bring them coming back again and again. So anytime I maximize a dollar, I hope to really understand how I can reach new audiences and prospective audiences. OluKai has been around for some time, but they're still gaining traction and awareness in the marketplace. What the value that we had with CTV is the ability of that targeting and the ability to understand those audiences. And so we quickly layered in our CRM data as an exclusion audience. We were able to really validate that in a very similar way of performance marketing through Meta, you know. So we included that. And just stacking on all kinds of demographic behaviors, all these things that are surprisingly available in the platform that you might not think traditional sort of TV. And this is a refreshing experience for us. And I kind of indicate as such as like, don't think of it as 16:9 as much as you do a 9:16 in its targeting capabilities and its audience capabilities. It's really as advanced as a 9:16 type advertisement, though it's horizontal. So I think I just want to, that was like kind of a realization for me is like, wow, I can get very targeted and I can get this level of detail.
Yeah, I love that. We have a lot of customers that will use their first party data as like their CRM or their Klaviyo audiences as an exclusion list for net new. And then we'll have others that will also then layer on another campaign that would focus on being able to find the high lifetime value customers or past purchasers who haven't purchased in the last 180 days, but yet, you know, they're buying pairs of shoes more than once. So it's like a great targetable TV channel for you. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it should be no different, right, on this channel as any other effort that you put in your advertising. So the fact that it's so readily available to us, like very self-service, very simple UI, very understandable analytics and insights behind it, because you can match it back to that household level, right? Like that was some of my challenge with linear is the measurement, as I understood it, was like on a time basis. When they ran the spot nationally, you study your traffic over a period of time, say 5 minutes delay, and you track the uplift. Well, what's to say that they were watching that spot or that in that restaurant or in that home or whatever, if they got up to, go do anything, that was attributable. Whereas now I have IP matching through the Wi-Fi that they're attached on all their devices within that household. And I can know with a higher level of confidence when that spot ran in that IP address of that home, and then they go on another device, I can tie that back. So that's the value that I found in the, I guess, just more tight attribution.
Yeah. Targeted audiences, attributable. You've also tested some creative audience angles, like day parting. That's a really interesting approach because we don't have a lot of people who do that. So I'd like to hear a little bit more of kind of what your thought process was behind that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought back as anytime I run advertising, I try to think of myself in the mind of a customer and a consumer. Like, what would I want to see if I were them? I hate getting a ton of commercials of the same one, right? Like, it's the worst to see, this commercial again, right? So that was something I just had in mind of like frequency in some of these. The other is, as a marketer, I'm like, when is the right time and place to run this advertisement? You think email is I'm actually kind of shocked about how many people receive an email at 9 a.m. Pacific, spend 3 minutes of their workday shopping, adding $100 of product to cart, and then checking out when they should be working. It's
Don't talk about that.
Raise your hand if that's you.
Every day.
Okay, yeah, some of you guys aren't raising them, come on. I was just shocked at that behavior, and SMS even more so, like, it's very immediate. Social media is social advertising, a little bit of an attempt to interrupt some of their passive scrolling throughout the day. Then you think TV, it's a more intimate time frame that you have. Perhaps it's in the evening when you're home, and perhaps it's like after dinner or whatever, and you're kind of winding down, and the attention is there, I feel. The engagement, the commitment is there. You don't go sit down to watch a show for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, like you would a social kind of scroll. You're invested. And so I just thought of that. And then we were running for some time, and we got enough data to understand, well, what is the hour of day and the half hour of day and day of week that we saw the most results? Significant engagement rate, sessions to the site due to our ability to kind of track some of that, and ROAS in performance. And for us, it was early morning, Saturday, Sunday, just our demographic. I think it made a ton of sense. We were also able to do so like across the country to the relevant time zones of the morning. So, and I was like, wow, it's like dark blue right here. That's like high performance, right at the start date that I had set, or start time. So I kept bumping that upwards earlier in the day. And I was like, wow, this customer is just, really engaged in watching TV earlier than I expected. I saw weekends in particular. And so I just set another campaign that day parted for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it ran at particular times. And I, as a small, advertising team or whatever, can, not be as manual with my budget adjustments. I could just kind of set that and it'll run.
kind of that he's referring to the dark blue in our reporting where you can see when it like the day parting and when people are purchasing, which also kind of you hit on the ease of use of the platform that you can easily quickly go in and make adjustments and it automatically updates it into the way we're buying. So that makes it very easy for performance marketers to really execute these kind of deals. Love it.
One thing to add on to that, because it did remind me, I know everyone probably tells you this, but it's no different that I literally got live with Vibe by downloading, getting the pixel on Shopify, connecting my data sources, connecting Klaviyo, loading up a campaign, set a budget, uploaded an MP4, and I was in business like an hour later. It was it was very
I'm hiring salespeople. Do you want a job?
Yeah, I know everyone will tell you that, but
It makes it easy.
It is. It was true in this case too.
Yeah, I often joke and say like, don't confuse the simplicity of how easy it is to buy with the complexity that goes on in the back end to make sure it's delivering on the KPIs, because you're going to put the KPIs in there. This is my goal I need to get to in order to see success. So we often monitor that to make sure it's delivering on what you need. All right. Everybody really wants to hear from you on results, I'm sure. So let's dive into that. What type of results were you seeing? What have you been noticing? What kind of would you like to share with this audience on what really moved the needle for you and why you've seen like performance in CTV?
Yeah, it's one of those channels that takes a little bit more repetition and sort of saturation at the household level. It's one of those that requires, I mean, it is view-based largely, right? You're not gonna, seldom do you see a commercial and you immediately have to like stop everything you're doing, pull out your laptop and buy right now, as much as we hope that, it is. So it took some time to really gather that understanding. What we found through our sort of like non-click-based measurement tools is the point in which we saw greatest performance lift came after a period of a couple weeks, and kept growing as time progressed, as we kept sort of the gas on. And we ran incrementality test result through our partners at House, and that came back as showing a significant lift. We ran that through our MMM partners as well. That was indicating not only just D2C directly, but also when we layered in Amazon, that it ought to take easily third spot of our budget share of wallet behind Meta and Google. So these are like just really clear indicators that it's working. Post-purchase survey, started to attribute. And then we looked longer term, like the last, I ran this just a moment ago, the last 3 months of data on our search console. Brand search queries are up 50% year over year when we weren't running to this level in late Q1 of LY. So that alone was very, directional to the fact that we had this on. Sure, we're doing a lot of other stuff on the brand side, but yeah, this is really considerable.
So that branded search lift, that's pretty compelling, 50% up year over year. How were you measuring that? It was one of our incremental or MMM partners?
No, so we had compared some of what Northbeam provided and organic search lift as a channel, as well as just Google Search Console, and just ran that through. And that's, I think, even more considerable given the fact of LLM placements taking a lot of that and diverting traffic away from maybe a traditional search that would come in then as Claude or ChatGPT referral. But so that's even more considerable. But yeah.
So you used Northbeam from an MMM MTA, and then you did also incrementality tests, like two different tools. How do they kind of work together when you're looking at what the results are that you're seeing? How do you look at and view them differently?
Yeah, I mean, it's a triangulation of all of them, right? We try to consolidate into as few as possible to get a very clean lead. An example is we ran some tests through another partner with MMM that did not have informed priors of a GeoLift, and it gave a pretty significant different read. We then ran the GeoLift test, put that into the modeling as a prior, and it shifted toward a direction that it would indicate that lift result was more significant. So it's very much like trying to take MMM at a broader budgetary level, much longer time horizon, take incrementality and a seasonality approach. So we understood levels of building the funnel in Q2 ahead of Mother's Day, Father's Day, peak season for us, spring, summer. we wanted to ensure that we're running a lift test during that time to know how well that would impact post-treatment window beyond, versus that which were to do a holdout to run a lift test in a peak time frame, like right against BFCM. So I think as you do get some of these results and you start to measure that differently, there is seasonality that plays a role.
How do you feel about multiple incrementality tests? Like I have some brands that will do continually testing to make sure they're seeing the needle move, but then I have others that they'll do one test and it's kind of like, okay, these are the results I'm living by. What do you feel about like multiple tests?
Yeah, like in our case, we ran a couple here, one of which, we've tested a lot of channels as like a total channel holdout. And I think we put minimal budget in because we were, I guess, like wanting to reserve testing budget behind it. And then we, like an example would be like a Snapchat or a TikTok or something for OluKai. And the results are a little bit less incremental than we were hopeful to see. And then my thought says, well, how much did we actually saturate that and really give it a good go to be meaningful? So what we try to vibe to is a more significant investment for a longer period of time to see how impactful that would be. And some of the responses came, well, maybe that is not the optimal spend level. Maybe you went too hard. So let's try like following up with a spend down test. Maybe there's a right level that you should be at that is meaningful for your business at that time in the current mix that you have. So those are other variables beyond just seasonality that need to be considered. Creative is another one, right? So I go back to that and say, what did we run? Was it more brand focused? Was it more like direct response? All that plays a role.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and it kind of leads into the next question is when we were talking about one of your incrementality tests, like your first question is, what was the creative did we run? And that's one of the last questions I had for you is like, what do you think you didn't work for you? What do you think you found out that if you were to test again, you would do differently?
In terms of the incrementality test?
Yeah,
or?
just in general with, I would say, CTV, like
Yeah.
what did you learn about creative that you wish you had known on day one?
Yeah, that's a good point. For me, there's this, I guess, traditional thought process of television. I would go back to the 16:9 versus 9:16 combo. That you have to invest significant budget into production, right? Because you assume, well, we're going up against the Geicos and the Allstates and the big brands that are like always running there because that's their ability to reach new audiences. But as a direct response channel, I think we placed. We wanted to place less emphasis on the production value of like total budget and ran it in a way that was like just through our intern videographer and editor who cut something horizontal that worked really well on like a YouTube spot or, more direct response social and threw that in. And it was far performant over that of like the other creative that was highly produced. And I would want to give confidence to teams out there that are like, well, I can't get started because that's a limitation. I found it to actually work the opposite, that was more performant, to be a little bit more, I don't know, just, and the production value is still fine. I think we tied other efforts towards like the network, right? So we got a little bit more specific with golf audiences and those kind of approaches, but that was some of how we thought about it.
Yeah, that's UGC content on TV is becoming more and more prevalent. Like we have even our own social creator just to help brands that don't have the ability and in-house creative studios to build that because it doesn't need to be $30,000, $10,000 video creative anymore. It can be done with what's working for you on Meta.
Yeah, and that's where your team has been super helpful too of like, what's best practice? Should I have captions on? Should I have logo on for 50% of the video and in which, how many pixels? And they get real surgical with it to say like, this is something that we could start as a baseline and test. And, should you have captions with like, should you have a talk track over top and should you end with an offer and all these things that you would be as scrutinous in your social advertising and Vibe does a great job to help us there.
All right. So we're new to running in CTV late last year. And I'm kind of curious where we sit now, totally putting him on the spot with this one. Where do we sit in relative mix to all of your other performance channels today? Be nice.
No, yeah, we're at third in the budget share, right? Behind Meta and Google. We've tested plenty into other social platforms that haven't seemed to be as performant through these same measurement methodologies. So we have a high level of confidence here. I think the broader understanding is the halo impacts that it's had. So our Amazon channel is up significantly year over year. Our D2C is up quite as much as well. But wholesale is just seeing a ton of growth. So there's that halo impact that I think is starting conversations internally to say like, well, if we have separate P&Ls for separate business units and different stakeholders managing different spend, might we benefit from consolidation a little bit here and have an understanding that if impact is happening there, that budget should go there and performance should be rewarded. So that's kind of happening now.
All right, my last question. For someone who's sitting in the audience and somewhat skeptical about adding another performance channel into their mix or even running TV, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the barrier to entry is low now, but to the customer, the perceived value is still significantly high. Like, I think there's a bit of a shift toward the ability with AI and other tools that can help you get briefs written and other content up and sites spun up, and like the ability to get live on a lot of other social channels and things is quite reduced, like quite simple. And whereas the additional frontier, and then like these same brands that have scaled that up are reaching diminishing returns on reach, and they're pushing the incrementality. They're trying to find rolling reach, like reports and other ways to expand. And so I think like then the customer perceives this medium as just high value because like you see Geico and then you see like OluKai. You're like, wow, that must be a huge brand, you know? And so I think attention is there. And so I think a lot of these brands are going to try to enter into that space more. So I don't know. I think test it out for yourself because it's so easy to get up and running. There's plenty of measurement capabilities behind it. And the amount of targeting ability is just insane. So I would think of it as no different from, some of your other direct response channels in terms of capabilities. It's just the measurement, really. So yeah.
We hear that so much about, and that's, again, comparing ourselves to Meta even, where it's volatile CAC, like lower returning diminishing returns, all those things. And that's where we typically find some of our new customers. So I appreciate that. And thank you very much for coming and